Rachel Epstein has been Chief Marketing Officer for the National Women's Soccer League for less than 2 months, but she's stepping into the role at a pivotal moment. With the FIFA World Cup arriving next month, the NWSL sees a major opportunity to bring new fans into the world of women's soccer. Epstein talks about the league's Summer of Soccer strategy today on the Marketer's Brief, our weekly discussion of marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. Women's sports are operating in a fundamentally different environment than they were even a decade ago, and Epstein is determined to turn the rising attention into lasting fandom. We'll talk about storytelling, female sports audiences, and why she thinks the growing women's sports media ecosystem matters more than people realize. I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age. Before we begin, I want to call your attention to a new awards program. Ad Age Midsize Brand Leaders honors senior in-house marketing leaders making a difference at mid-market brands, typically companies with $50 million to $1 billion in annual revenue. Does this sound like you or someone you know? Find out more, including how to enter, at adage.com/midsize leaders. And now, my conversation with Rachel. Rachel Epstein, welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Thanks for having me, John. Great to be here.
Great. Let's start with the big question out there. The World Cup feels like a potentially transformative moment for soccer here in America. How much of an accelerant do you think that can be for the NWSL specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge opportunity for the NWSL and for soccer, right? Like global moments like these big events bring in waves of new fans. Current fans, of course, right? Like global core football fans, but also new fans that come in, learn about the game, get excited about the game. And then our job is to embed NWSL into that momentum and narrative in that window, and then bring them in, hang on to their new and growing soccer interest and bring them in to the NWSL and our ecosystem.
Are there ways you're going to do that specifically? But we'll see.
Yes, absolutely. We have a whole strategy that we're calling Summer of Soccer that will do just that, that we will be driving conversation that integrates NWSL into the Men's World Cup conversation, that brings our voice and our personalities to games. And we literally have a bus that will be making stops across the country, including our key tentpoles during those windows, our Challenge Cup, our Return to Play, our Queen's Classic at Citi Field. We are going to sort of integrate that into the Men's World Cup momentum and conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of brands and a lot of entities that want to kind of draft on this amazing event. Do you feel like there's some competition where you've got to kind of stand out among all the places or all the people that want to be a part of this?
I don't know if I think about it as competition. Obviously, there's a lot. There will be a lot of noise, but the good news is we are and aim to be the premier global, women's soccer league, and we have a really unique voice and territory that we own that allows us to be distinctive and really authentic in that space, right? But alongside brands and other sort of newer entrants into global soccer, we are sort of already a core part of the ecosystem, and we just want to ensure that our voice and personalities are heard and elevated during that time.
So you've been at this job only for a matter of weeks. I wonder what's your early read on where the league is right now?
I mean, I am coming into a league with a tremendous foundation. And, in my time at ESPN, I worked, I looked after women's sports marketing there and worked closely with the league. So I have a really good sense of all the momentum it has and all of the upside there still is to drive towards. So we're in growth stage, right? Like up and to the right, and there is more to do, but I'm so excited about the opportunity and where we can go.
Yeah, I want to say one of your earlier experiences was also a part of the leadership team that founded WPS, which was a predecessor to NWSL.
Yeah.
And there's a big change between sort of what happened, what was the impetus for the success you're seeing now with NWSL, and maybe some of the struggles or difficulties to get off the ground that some previous leagues might have had.
It's apples and oranges, and it's a totally different time. And the structure of the business and the tremendous ownership groups we have now, the investment, and I think maybe that's the most important thing, really significant investment, patient investment that understands that it takes time to grow and sort of build audience and drive enterprise value. There's no comparison. But on a personal level, like that was it was early in my career. It was the sort of the place where my, sort of my career in women's sports began, informative, made me a soccer person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, while it's truly apples and oranges in terms of the sort of business and the way it's structured and all of the opportunity and advantage and growth that we have now, it still was very formative for me. And I take lessons, personal lessons, really, from that time. I took those lessons into my time at ESPN, and then I landed here, and it really feels like the perfect fit.
Yeah, it's just really remarkable how we've seen women's sports kind of turn around from every perspective you can look at. And you mentioned investment, obviously, is one.
Yes.
Brands want to be involved now.
Yes. I mean, when I just think about the state of women's sports, right? And I have a pretty long view on it, right? At 14 years at ESPN. So again, sort of on a personal level, it is thrilling to see the momentum, right, in the space and the health of it. And there are talked about investment. There are all of the metrics and indicators that make the headlines: exponential growth and expansion fees, valuations, attendance records, 63,000 fans at our inaugural Denver Summit match, and the marketplace, as you mentioned, with sort of greater demand for women's sports than ever. And the NWSL is an active part of that marketplace, and we're continuing to see that interest and build it and build alongside our brands and partners. I would just note that sort of a quieter but really vital indicator, honestly, John, is a conversation like this with you. The burgeoning media ecosystem focused just on women's sports. Obviously, you're not dedicated to women's sports, but dedicated podcasts and shows and documentaries and bylines and events, all built, for women's sports, not sort of, as sort of this adjacent add-on, but like focused and dedicated to it. That is a vital ecosystem. It creates the flywheel, right? You tell the stories, you educate new fans, you engage current fans, and all of that helps sort of build audience, build value, bring more eyeballs, bring more investment. So like it's both the headlines and the sort of that quieter infrastructure that is really coming together that indicates how healthy the women's sports space is.
Right. So you mentioned the fans, and who is the NWSL fan right now, and how has that profile changed?
Well, we have a very passionate and committed fan base. There's no question about it, right? And we're seeing healthy growth across attendance and viewership. We have a tremendous opportunity, and we got at this a little. You got at this a little bit around the Men's World Cup, but really over the next 5 years across Men's World Cup, Women's World Cup, Olympics, possibly a 2031 Women's World Cup, maybe on our soil, to capitalize on that sort of global soccer spotlight, right? So a really committed current fan base. But what this next 5 years will propel is a massive, sort of wave of new fans. So they're coming into soccer because they're rooting for their country, or they've come to know the breakout stars that these global events always give rise to. And we are extremely well positioned to convert that spotlight into sustained audience growth. So that's the job in front of us. There's no question. Our core women's soccer fan is the best. We should build our brand around the sort of ethos and spirit of that fan. But the opportunity to sort of grow and expand is in front of us, and we're going to do that.
Are there particular areas or demographics or groups that you are sourcing fans from?
Yeah, I mean, look, without trying to be everything to everyone, that's not how you do it. I should say that, like, we invite all fans into the NWSL, and there's a huge opportunity just to, again, back to even this Men's World Cup window, just to engage like core international global soccer fans and bring them into NWSL. Like, they understand world-class soccer. We have a world-class soccer product, best in the world, women's side. So that is an opportunity we want to take advantage of and build in terms of that sort of behavioral demo of like big, core fan of global soccer.
Okay.
The other thing I would just add, and this sort of goes to a little bit my time at ESPN, is the opportunity to actually drive female audience growth. And I've said this before, but I'll say it here. I think for a long time there was this like conflation that women's sports equals women's fans, female fans, and like that is not true, right? Mm-hmm. That historically has not been the case, right? Many years ago at ESPN, there were not huge female audience numbers in terms of watching women's sports, but it is an audience segment that is driving incremental growth right now. So like that opportunity to drive female audience growth, you can think about it more broadly, like 18 to 44, but that opportunity is a more recent one. And we want to take advantage of that. It will look a little different, sort of in the younger side of that demo, right? In the way those, young audiences, as I'm sure you've talked about in countless times on this podcast, like engage with content and what their fandom looks like and second screen sort of experience versus, tuning into TV. But irrespective of like the sort of a breakdown of that sort of female audience demo, there is a huge opportunity to grow there. And one of the ways that we can do that and will do that is by building out a robust content strategy and ecosystem. That is an opportunity in front of us that we are going to do, and it will drive storytelling, and it will elevate our players, like our current stars, and build new stars, and create entry paths for new fans, right? So female, just as like sort of a sweeping generalization, but it is true that at ESPN, we did a ton of research on this early, starting with the birth of ESPNW, which was really built to sort of serve female audiences. And that is because they fan a little bit differently. Connection is key, right? It's not that women aren't just watching the game on the pitch or on the court, on the field, like, and loving all of the competitive excellence. That is true. But their way into to sort of interest and connection might look a little different. And it is really through the sense of personal connection, whether it's through a star athlete and their story, or through their family, or through their university, or through their hometown. Like something about it often is personal, and then they come into the sport. So we need to create those pathways, and we will.
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going with that, Rachel. Yeah, maybe you can give me an example of sort of how you are telling these stories about your players and roping in fans that way.
I mean, look, we have a tremendous foundation, but we have more work to do in terms of storytelling, from a league office perspective. And so far, we're counting a little bit on our partners to tell those stories. ESPN's done a great job. Amazon, everybody, that we're partnered with in our ecosystem, the opportunity to really tell those stories from like on sort of league platforms and through our sort of owned media ecosystem is in front of us. And we are going to start, we are beginning to build that out now. Make no mistake, we have star players that are breaking through. I mean, I think everybody sort of knows the names and Trinity and Sophia and Mal and a whole swath of sort of current stars. We want to also sort of get fans in front of like that sort of new rising class of stars. And so we're going to, as we build out this sort of content strategy and drive velocity and engagement with our current fans and create those new sort of pathways for new fans, elevating that sort of new class of players and stars will be really important.
Do you have other priorities ahead of you?
Yeah, I mean, look, the audience growth is vital. You've heard it here, right? For me and for our league, again, building on a great foundation, it's really important that we cement our brand in the hearts and minds of current fans and new fans, what we stand for, the distinctive place and space we can own in the minds and hearts of fans to drive connection and loyalty and ultimately growth. But we need to really cement that so that we get a little stickier, right? And so that there's a clear sort of emotional connection. That work is in front of us, and I'm super excited about it.
Right. We're running short on time here, but I do have one question that we try to ask all our guests. And that is if you could name one CMO out there and what your question might be for them.
Oh, I mean, this might be everyone's answer right now, but I'm really impressed with what the Gap is doing right now. Fabiola Torres is the CMO. Like, what a turnaround, right? And so, and sort of a distinctive new strategy to really drive cultural relevance, which is an imperative for the league as well. So, yeah, I mean, I have a whole host of questions, but my question would just be like, what did it look like? What did it look like to sell inside, their walls, this new way of inserting Gap into culture and conversation? It's unmissable right now, right? And all the way into Fashion Week and the Met Gala. So I think that would be my answer.
That's a great answer. Rachel Epstein, thanks so much for joining us on the Marketer's Brief.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
That was Rachel Epstein, Chief Marketing Officer of the National Women's Soccer League. And I'm John Springer, Senior Reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and remind you that you can subscribe to the Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.